Hello. Write in the comments. Where are you from? Don't forget to subscribe and like. Enjoy listening. A week before the sale of the apartment, the father-in-law said to Lena, "While my son is away, take a hammer and break the tile behind the toilet." Bathroom. Lena was scared. "Why spoil it? Repair?" He replied sternly. "Your husband is deceiving you, isn't it? It's difficult there." She chipped off a piece of the tile. What she saw on the wall behind her made her silently lower herself to the floor. But before that moment, before the floor left her, from under my feet, there was still a whole week ordinary planned life. Or by at least that's what it seemed to her. All started on Wednesday. Vadim, her husband, is already the second day was a business trip. Left for neighboring region, allegedly to conclude an important contract for your company. Recently things weren't going well for him at the time, and the trip, he said, was supposed to be everything. To correct. Lena was left alone in their 3-room apartment, which they prepared for sale. There was only a week before the deal. The apartment was shining. The renovations they completed in total 6 months ago, he was her pride. I personally chose every detail, the shade, laminate, wallpaper texture, lamps in corridor. Vadim initially waved it off. He said that this was all women's nonsense. But when I saw the result, I went rooms with an important air, clicking his tongue, and he told the guests that it was all his idea. Lena didn't argue. The main thing is that it is for both of them. I liked it. She loved this apartment, every corner of it. It was a shame to sell it, but they decided to invest in a country house. New life, new stage. That day Lena was doing normal things. I wiped at dust from furniture that hasn't been cleaned yet, cover with film, water the flowers windowsill. There was silence in the apartment, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the noise of cars outside the window. Phone call. Vadim's morning was short and businesslike. All okay, lots of meetings, no time. Speak, kiss. She got used to him. Employment. Vadim has always been like this, energetic, always in a hurry, living for future successes. Closer to lunchtime, there was a knock at the door. Lena was surprised. I wasn't expecting anyone. She was standing on the threshold. Father-in-law Mikhail. It was strange. Michael was a withdrawn person, taciturn. After his wife's death, he completely withdrew into himself and rarely left his old apartment on the other side of town. He never came without warning. He looked as usual, gray hair, deep wrinkles on the face, old but clean jacket. But there's something in his gaze. It wasn't like that. Somehow heavy and uncharacteristic determination on his part. "Hello, Lena," he said, not crossing the threshold. The voice was hoarse, deaf. "Mikhail, hello, come in. Did something happen? With Vadim everything is fine." Her heart sank. The first thought is bad news about the husband. With Vadim is fine. The father-in-law said this with some kind of bitter smile, from which Lena became even more uneasy. He entered the hallway and closed it behind him door. I looked around the clean, bright apartment, lingering his gaze on the new front door, which they installed a month ago. "I came to you," he said, as if answering her unasked question. "Vadim, no." "Is he in town?" "No, he's in business trip. Should be back Friday evening." Mikhail nodded as if he had expected exactly that. Such an answer. He walked silently into the kitchen. Lena followed him, feeling like anxiety is growing. He didn't sit down at the table, as I usually did. I remained standing in the middle kitchen, putting his hands in his jacket pockets. Then he pulled out his right hand. There was in it hammer, a regular mechanic's hammer with wooden handle, old with knocked down edges. Lena froze, looking at this hammer in his hand. "I need you to. I did something," he said quietly but firmly. "He's not here yet." What should I do?" she whispered. "Let's go." He took her to the bathroom. The bathroom was her special one. Pride. Perfectly smooth beige tiles, new acrylic bathtub, shiny chrome-plated faucets. Vadim insisted on expensive Italian tiles, and they argued with the master for 3 days, so that he could lay it out without a single flaw. Mikhail stopped at the toilet and pointed hammer on the wall behind him. "This one, the tile," he said, "needs to be broken." Lena looked from him to him, perfect glossy tile surface. She thought she had misheard. "What? For what? Mikhail, are you out of your mind? We are just that the renovations have been completed. Vadim, me, will kill. He found this with such difficulty tile he chased her all over the city. I'm in my right mind, Lena, but you live in deception. Your husband is cheating on you." True. There he poked the hammer again wall. His face was stern, stone, not a shadow of a doubt. Lena took a step back. Thoughts in my head. We're confused. Maybe the old man has something wrong with your head? Age, grief after death, wives. I won't do that, he said firmly. She said, this is madness. You are ruining things for us. Property. Let me make you some tea instead. I'll pour you some and you'll calm down. We don't have time for tea, he snapped. Property. Coming soon. You will have no property left. No this, nor the other. He handed it to her hammer. Do it, or I'll do it myself, but it's better if you do it. She looked into his tired, faded eyes, and I saw such pain and such in them confidence that her own determination began to melt. Something had really happened, something terrible that she didn't know. I knew Mikhail for many years. He wasn't capable of stupid, evil jokes, but what could it be there? Her voice trembled. There. Wall, main wall. There's a hiding place there, he simply answered. Vadim thinks that I don't know anything, but I saw it. I came in when he was finishing messing around here. I thought he was laying tiles, but he was laying bricks. Took it out. He saw me and started to fuss. He said he was checking the wiring. But I saw that he was hiding something. The words sounded terribly convincing. Lena took the hammer. He was heavy and cold. My hands wouldn't obey. The thought of Vadim's anger paralyzed her. I imagined his face distorted by rage. He was so proud of this renovation, this bathroom. He called her our little one. Versailles. It was necessary to break this tile. It's tantamount to spitting in his face soul. I can't, she whispered, ready to burst into tears. Can? Sternly answered the father-in-law. Think about yourself, Lena, at least once. Not about him, and this simple. The appeal worked. She always thought about him, about his comfort, about his career, about his mood. She smoothed out the rough edges in them. Relationships, forgave minor grievances, supported me in all my endeavors. A ode to yourself? She closed her eyes and, swinging, hit the tile. There was a sound deafening. The fragments flew in all directions. When she opened my eyes, on a perfect surface there was an ugly hole with jagged edges gaping. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. There is no way back. She hit again and more. The tiles crumbled, revealing a layer. Cement. Michael watched silently, standing by doors. Lena worked with a hammer and an edge the chisel he handed her, chipping away. Piece by piece. My fingers hurt, my breathing got lost. And here it is under a layer of solution I saw him. Brick. He was different from the rest. There was no frozen material around the edge's cement. It was inserted into a niche. Later she picked it out with a chisel. Brick. Gave way and fell into her hands. There was one behind him, black emptiness. Lena sank down knees, looked inside. In the depths, there was a black sealed bag lying on the wall, lightning, similar to those in which they store documents on hikes. She launched her hand into a cold, dusty niche and pulled it out. The package was heavy. Go into the room, said Mikhail. No need here. She obediently stood up and, pressing the bag to her chest, went into the living room. She sat down on the sofa. Hands were shaking so much that she didn't immediately. I was able to unzip the zipper. The father-in-law sat in the chair opposite, silent and gloomy. Finally the lightning gave way. The first thing I saw money, thick-packed 5,000 ruble notes tied with an elastic band. A lot of money. Lena. No, I knew exactly how much, but the amount was huge, maybe 500,000, maybe more. The first thought is this stash. For a rainy day, Vadim just doesn't. I wanted to tell her so as not to worry her. A stupid, naive thought that died as soon as she saw what was lying there under the money. These were documents. A sheet of paper folded in 4. She turned it around his. Power of attorney. Official form. Seal. Signature notary. She ran her eyes over text. I, Lena Alexandrova, trust sell to citizen Vadim Knyazev. My share of the apartment, the right to receive all that is due to me, funds, and her signature below. A perfect exact copy of her signature, which she never put. It was fake. General power of attorney, which removed her from the deal and deprived her all the money from the sale of their shared apartment. It took my breath away. My head started spinning. But that was not all. Under there were 2 tickets lying under the power of attorney, electronic printouts, airline, Montenegro Airlines, flight to Tivot, date departure Saturday. The next day after scheduled sale of the apartment, tickets to one end. She looked at the names passengers. First ticket, Nyazov Vadim. Second ticket, Alexandrov, K. Alexandrova. Lena clung to this letter K she has. There wasn't a single acquaintance in my head named K. Katerina. Ksenia, Christina. Maybe it is error, typo in the airline, or just a coincidence. Some other one, Alexandrova, with whom Vadim decided run away, stealing her money. The thought was monstrous, but she desperately cares for it, clung to it because it was true, already began to emerge into consciousness, was even worse. She wanted to put these off already. Damn papers. Put everything back in a bag. Pretend that nothing happened, I saw it, but her fingers felt it at the bottom. There was something small and hard in the package. She shook it out onto the sofa. Small silver medallion on a thin chain. Oval with engraved twig lilacs. Grandma's medallion. When she was dying and gave it to Lena, said, so that he would bring her happiness. Lena wore it several years, and then about 7 years ago that terrible quarrel happened. Her youngest. Sister Kira saw the medallion and arranged hysteria that she, the youngest, would never have anything. It turns out that Lena always gets everything the best. Mom then took my side. Kira. Lena, but you are the eldest, be smarter. Give in to your sister, that's what she wants. We are so generous. Elena gave in, took it off her neck and gave it to Kira so that it would be in the family there was peace. Mom kept putting it on for a long time after that. She used this act as an example to her, she said. What a generous eldest daughter she has. Alina simply buried the resentment deep down, inside. And now this medallion was lying there in front of her next to a ticket with Kay's name on it, Alexandrova. Kira Alexandrova, her younger sister. At this moment the world for Lena ceased to exist. The sounds disappeared. The colors faded. Before only these 3 things stood out in front of my eyes. Fake power of attorney, ticket in the name sisters and her own, once sacrificed to family peace medallion. It wasn't just treason, there was mockery, ridicule of her kindness over her self-sacrifice. The cold that started in the fingertips slowly crawled up my arms to shoulders to the heart. There was not enough air. She opened her mouth to say something. I screamed, but nothing came out of my throat sound. Her legs couldn't support her anymore. She, slowly, silently, slid off the sofa floor. The floor was cold. Lena was sitting on him, clasping her knees with her hands and looking at. One point, on the paper thieves and silver medallions scattered across the light pile carpet. There was silence in the room, deafening, thick as fog. It seemed as if even the air froze. Michael, he grunted, rising from his chair. His old ones, the joints creaked in protest. He came up and stood silently over her. Lena no raised their heads. She felt him a heavy look, full of silent sorrow. I didn't say so, I warned you. There was no need. Get up, Lena, he said. Finally, his voice was dull and tired. Sitting on the floor won't help matters. She slowly raised her eyes to him. There were tears, only emptiness and cold, ringing bewilderment, as if her world was so clear and durable. An hour ago, it turned out to be cardboard decoration, and someone sharply. He pulled the rope, showing what was behind it, only darkness and deception. He and Kira, she whispered. Her sister's name was given to her with difficulty, as if the tongue did not want it pronounced. Mikhail sighed heavily. I didn't know about your sister. I only knew that Vadim is up to something, that he has become strangers, the same as I once was. He extended his hand to her. Lena grabbed onto her. His palm was dry and calloused, like tree bark. He helped her up, on cottony, disobedient legs. She's back again, sat down on the sofa. Her gaze was fixed on evidence of betrayal. Medallion sparkled in a ray of sunlight that broke through the curtain, a blow to the very heart. Not just a husband's betrayal, but a sister's betrayal, for which she once got this medallion and gave it away. They are both the closest to her people, conspired to destroy her. First impulse, wild and animalistic. Call Vadim and scream into the phone everything she thinks about him. Call Kira and ask why. Call Mom, cry, complain, seek protection. And then an icy wave common sense washed over her. What is this? We'll give. Vadim will say that she has gone crazy, that this is some kind of mistake, a setup. He knew how to be convincing. He will turn everything around so that she herself will turn out to be a guilty hysteric. And Kira will start crying. She always started. Cry when she was pinned against the wall. And Mom, of course, will rush to her right away, protect. Lena, how can you do this? Talk about your sister? Are you stressed because of sale of an apartment? You're winding yourself up." She had already heard these words in her head. "No, confrontation is trap. This is exactly what they are waiting for. They will simply deny everything. They have it on in his hands is a fake power of attorney, which gives them all the power. And in her arms, only her word against their common lies. And this hiding place, which they will call it fiction. We need to remove everything," she said out loud, surprised at herself. In his calm business tone. Voice was a stranger. Mikhail nodded understandingly. "That's right. They shouldn't know that you know. This is your only one advantage." Lena began to act. His hands were still shaking, but now there was a goal in the movements. She's neat collected the money, wrote down the power of attorney. Tickets, took the medallion for a second, squeezed it in her fist. Cold metal burned the skin, then put everything back in. Black waterproof bag and zipped up. "This needs to be hidden," she said, looking around. "But not here. He can come back and start looking." "Give it to me," he simply said, Mikhail. "I'm definitely looking for him." "Will not happen." Lena handed him the package without hesitation. The father-in-law took it and hid it in the inner pocket of his jacket. Now there is no one in the room. There is no trace left of what was here happened. Only broken tiles and bathroom. What to do with this? She nodded. Towards the bathroom. "Leave it. If he asks, tell me. Something heavy fell. Bottle with perfume. A jar of cream. Doesn't matter. Let thinks it's an accident. This is not the main thing now. The main thing is what's most important now. The main thing to understand is actually happening. These tickets, this is a power of attorney, this is their plan. But on what stage is he at? There is still time before the apartment is sold, the whole week. 7 days, she has time. Time to do something, need to gather more information, need to act, but act carefully, like a sapper in a minefield. She came to head idea, simple and safe. She will play her role until the end, the role of the loving, unsuspecting a wife who is waiting for her husband to return from a business trip and is busy with the upcoming deal. "I need to make a call," she said, rising. Mikhail questioned looked at her. "To the realtor, Sergey. I'll just clarify about the views. Next week. I'll ask if everything is okay. Strength. This is normal." "Fine," the father-in-law nodded. "This is a very good idea." He remained sitting in the living room. "Alina, I went to the kitchen and poured a glass of water from filter, drank it in one gulp. There was water. Icy, but inside she was burning. She had found a business card for a real estate agency, attached to the refrigerator with a magnet. Sergey, a cheerful, plump man of about 50, who entered into their deal. She dialed the number. The voice needs to be heard. Usually it's easy. A little excited about upcoming sale, the voice of a happy woman on the threshold of a new life. She took a few deep breaths and exhaled before pressing the button call. "Hello, New House Agency. Sergey is listening." A cheerful voice came through the receiver. Voice. "Sergey, hello. This is Lena Alexandrova regarding the apartment on the street piece. Vadim Knyazev's wife." "Lena, good morning." "Day. Glad to hear it. How can I help?" "Did Vadim forget to tell me something?" "Oh no, what are you saying? Vadim is on a business trip. The connection is bad. I just called on my own behalf. I wanted to clarify. We have it on the next one. There's already a deal this week, right? I wanted to ask if there will be more views or I already have everything so that I know when the apartment is in. Keep in perfect order." I delivered this monologue at one breathing, trying to make it sound as natural as possible. In the tube on. There was silence for a few seconds. Line she thought she could hear it beating her own heart. "On the next one." "Week?" Sergey asked again, and in his there was obvious bewilderment in the voice. "Lena, I don't understand something," I felt cold inside. "Well, yes, we are agreed that the deal would be in. Next Thursday." Vadim said, "Lena, your husband was with me yesterday," he said slowly. Sergey said as if choosing his words. "He brought a general power of attorney from you, said that you were very busy and you completely trust him with all your financial matters." Questions. Yes, a power of attorney, of course." Lena quickly nodded, feeling as the earth begins to slip out from under your feet. For the second time that day. "So, what, something? Has it changed?" "Everything has changed, already more than the realtor said confidently. Appeared urgent buyer. Man with cash was ready to make a deal immediately. I offered a good price, and Vadim agreed. He said you need it urgently. I need money to buy a house and have to wait. There is no point in a week. We signed it yesterday, preliminary agreement." Lena was silent, clutching the telephone receiver with white fingers. She could not say a word. Sergei apparently took her silence as a sign of consent. "Anyway, I congratulate you. Buyer very serious, no mortgages, no delays. He has already paid a deposit. We are urgently preparing the final documents. Vadim said that you are in a hurry. So well, Lena, everything is great. Deal closes the day after tomorrow. On Friday? Day after tomorrow. On Friday? Not in a week, in 48 hours. Thank you, Sergei." She heard your own voice, as if from sides. He was deaf and lifeless. "Thanks for the information. This is great news." She hung up. The phone slipped from my damp palm and fell with a dull thud onto the linoleum. 48 hours. She didn't have a week. She had. Only 2 days. And then the second one reached her. An even more terrible truth. He's not in business trip. He was at Realtor's yesterday. Today he's probably running around authorities, collecting the latest information. He is here, in this same city, completely near. And while she was wiping the dust and I was watering the flowers, he finished in cold blood. His plan to rob her and disappear along with her sister. Trap slammed shut, and she only has 2 days left to try to get out of it. Telephone fell to the floor, but Lena didn't even notice I noticed. She stood in the middle of the kitchen, leaning on tabletop, and looked into space. The day after tomorrow, this word was beating in my temples like a hammer. A week, not 7 days thoughts, on a plan, on salvation. Total 48 hours, 2 turns of the clock hand, and her life as she knew it would cease exist. Mikhail came out of the living room. He saw her frozen figure, the phone on the floor. He didn't need to ask what happened. It was all written on her face. What did he say? The father-in-law asked quietly. "The deal is on Friday, the day after tomorrow," Lena answered lifelessly. "Vadim is here, in the city. He is not on a business trip. He's everything. This time was here." She raised her Mikhail's eyes, and there was no more in them shock or confusion. A cold, dry fire burned there. The panic passed, giving way to icy rage, the rage of a cornered beast who has nothing more to lose. I can sit and wait," she said, and her voice became firm, unfamiliar. "I can't let them do this. You need to see them. I need to see in their eyes." "What are you planning?" Mikhail asked cautiously. "Today Wednesday," Lena said, and her brain, paralyzed with horror, suddenly started working at a feverish speed, in the middle of Mom's family dinner. Kira is always there, always. The plan was born in an instant, crazy, risky, desperate, but she had no other. She couldn't go to the police with a story about the hiding place and stolen medallion. She would have been laughed at. I couldn't challenge the power of attorney within 2 days. The only thing she could do was bring them to light, force them show your true face. She went to bedroom, opened the closet, started change clothes. The hands acted automatically. I took off my home t-shirt and put on a simple one dark sweater. Jeans, nothing provocative. She should look calm, tired but calmly. Any emotion will be used against her. She came up to dressing table and took her handbag. I opened it. The medallion that I took it from the carpet. It was lying in the inner pocket. She took it in her hand again. He seemed heavy as a stone. Weapon, which she was going to use. She put it back. "I'll go alone," she said to Mikhail, who was standing in bedroom doors. "This is our family's business. Your presence will only complicate things." "Be careful, Lena," he replied, and there was concern in his voice. "They are dangerous. Don't underestimate them." "I don't underestimate anymore," he said bitterly. She chuckled. "I don't have them anymore at all, I know." She arrived at her mother's house through half an hour. The smell of Mom's pies came from the windows, with cabbage, the smell of childhood, comfort, security. Today the smell seemed as false as a theatrical set. She stood at the entrance. Deep I breathed in the cold evening air, gathering strength. Then she entered. In. The apartment was warm and noisy. Work TV. Mama Ira was bustling about in the kitchen, rosy and contented. Kira was sitting at the table in the living room, leafing through a magazine. She looked up when Lena entered. "Hello," she said lazily. "And we thought you wouldn't come. Vadim is yours. You're burning with work, and what? Are you moping around at home?" "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Kira." Lena forced myself to smile. She came up and kissed her mother on the cheek. "It smells amazing. Sit down. We're going to have dinner now." Ira began to fuss. Karachka is for me today helped. Can you imagine? Lena sat down at table. She felt eyes on her sisters studying, a little mocking. She pretended to be looking at new one's curtains. They talked for a few minutes, about trifles, about the weather, about my mother's neighbors, about some TV show. Lena hardly participated in the conversation, only nodded and smiled. She was waiting for the moment. And that's when Mom put a large dish on the table with pies. Lena casually turned to her sister. Kira, are you in? Are you planning on going on vacation anytime soon? She asked. The voice sounded even, almost indifferent. Kira for a second froze with a fork in her hand. Her eyes quickly rushed to the mother. What makes you think that? She tried her best to pretend to be surprised. Of course not. What other trip? Work's full. Yes, it's strange, Lena said, looking her straight in the eyes. For some reason it seemed like you were going somewhere. Far. There was tension in the air. Mom felt this and frowned. Girls, what's wrong? Lena, what's this strange? Questions? Lena didn't answer. She did look like she's looking for something in her purse, who stood next to her on a chair. She rummaged through it, feigning annoyance. Crap, I think I forgot my lipstick at home. Oh. She fell silent and slowly pulled out her hand. In her palm lay a silver medallion. He shone dimly in the light of the chandelier. Look what I found. She passed it across the table. Kyria. Her voice was quiet, but in the ensuing silence it sounded like shot. How did he get here? I thought I gave it to you. Time stood still. Lena saw the blood drain from her face. Kira. For a second, a clear light was reflected on it. Animal fear. She looked at medallion like on a snake. Then fear was replaced by rage. Her face distorted. You, she hissed, jumping up from her chair like that so sharply that he almost fell. It's you who did it. Stole? I knew. You climbed into mine box. Thief. The accusation was so wild, so false that Lena was momentarily speechless. The mother immediately jumped up to Kira, hugging her by the shoulders. Kirochka, quiet down, my daughter, calm down. She turned to Lena, and his face was distorted with anger. Lena, what? Are you arranging? What kind of circus is this? Forever you with your envious games. I can't live in peace because my sister has everything fine. Mom, I don't say anything. Don't be silent. Ira interrupted her. You came here to humiliate my sister. I see right through you. Give her back the locket and apologize. Kira already, she cried loudly, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. These were familiar, well-practiced years of tears that always made her the victim and Alina the aggressor. And in this very moment when the scandal reached its peak, the key turned in the lock and the front door opened. There was someone standing on the threshold. Vadim, smiling, fresh and hand-cake, the ideal husband who came to see his mother-in-law after a hard day's work. He froze on the threshold for just a moment. One glance was enough for him to appreciate the whole picture. Crying Kira, furious mother-in-law, and his wife Lena, sitting at the table with a stone face. He didn't ask what happened. He understood everything, and he did it. Your choice. He walked past Lena like past the empty space, walked straight up to Kira, who was still sobbing on her shoulder. Mothers. He gently pushed his mother-in-law away, and he put his arm around Kira's shoulders, hugging her. It was a gesture of ownership, protection. He looked at Ira calmly and confidently with a glance. Ira, don't worry, he said. He quietly and conciliatorily stroked Kira by hair. Lena has been having a lot of trouble lately, a lot of stress, selling an apartment, everything this. She became a little paranoid. He paused, letting the words sink in. Then he looked straight at Lena. In his, there was no guilt or regret in his eyes. Only cold, ruthless calculation. He comes up with all sorts of things, he finished, turning to his mother-in-law, but looking at his wife. At that moment, Lena realized, that's it, it's over. It's no longer a secret conspiracy. They brought him into the light. They were going to hide or apologize. They simply rewrote the reality in which she's crazy and they're innocent victims. Her sick fantasy. He is publicly on in front of her own mother's eyes. He stood up her sister's side against her. He announced she was at war and her family was on his side. Vadim's words hung in the air, thick and poisonous. Paranoid. He passed sentence on her. Mother looked at her with reproach and pity, as if Lena was really sick. Kira, still clinging to Vadim, she threw it at her sister a quick, triumphant glance, and her victory splashed in his tear-stained eyes. Lena silently got up from the table. Didn't say a word. There was some argument, it's useless, there's no point in explaining. Any word she said now only confirmed it would be their diagnosis. She took her purse, looked at the three of them, this united group, this union of traitors. They stood like a monolith, a mother protecting her younger one daughter and her husband hugging her sister. She, Lena, found herself beyond the line, alien, extra. She turned around and walked towards exit. Nobody stopped her, nobody called out. She heard behind her back Mother's soothing whisper, "Here you go, you see, Kiruchka, everything is fine, everything is over." She went out onto the stairwell, and only there I was able to breathe. The air burned lungs. The humiliation was physical. There was pressure on my chest, making it difficult to breathe. She walked down the stairs holding on, the railing because my legs were shaking. Coming out into the street, she didn't go home straight away. I was just walking along the dark, empty streets, not sorting out the roads. A cold wind was blowing face, but she hardly felt it. Everything inside was burned out. She lost. She didn't just lose the battle. She didn't even I managed to start it. They were one step away ahead. They didn't just prepare, escape. They prepared a role for her. Role crazy, unbalanced wife, whose words cannot be trusted. And the worst thing is, her own family readily accepted this role. Returning to Mai in the car, she sat inside for a long time, looking on the dark windows of his apartment. There was enemy, she knew it. He most likely is already there waiting for her. But there was nowhere to run. This was her home, still hers. She went upstairs, the door was unlocked. She walked in, my heart sank. The light was on only in the bedroom. She walked slowly along corridor. Vadim was there. He stood with his back to me, to the door of the open closet, and methodically I was packing things into a large suitcase which was lying on their bed. He is not, feigned neither surprise nor guilt. I was just doing my job. He was packing her old life to throw it away. He heard her footsteps and turned around. The mask of a caring, concerned husband disappeared. His face was cold, alien, impenetrable. "I thought you'd be staying with your mom longer," he said calmly, throwing a stack of t-shirts in the suitcase. Decided not to waste time. Lena stopped at doors. She looked at him, at suitcase, on their shared bed, on which he was now packing his things for another life. With another woman, with her sister. "Then it's true," she said. The voice was hoarse. "It's all true." He chuckled, a short, evil grin. "And you thought I kidding?" "I thought it was a game. Lena, you always was so naive, so predictable." He walked over to the chest of drawers and emptied the drawer. My socks rolled into balls and threw them into the suitcase. He moved quickly, in a business-like manner, like a person who has little time and a lot of fares. "The apartment will be sold the day after tomorrow," he continued in the same manner in an icy tone, without looking at her. "How are you? You probably already know that I will receive the money. By proxy, you will not get anything pennies." He said it so simply, so casually, as if discussing the weather forecast. It's like 15 years of their marriage, this house, life meant absolutely nothing. "You can't do that," Lena whispered, although she herself understood how this sounds stupid. He not only could, I've already done this. "I can and I will," he said. Slammed the suitcase. The sound of clicking the lock sounded like a death sentence. He turned to her. "You're a fool, Lena, always she was. You lived in your own fantasy, a little world where everything is right and fair. But the world is not like that. The one who wins in it, Boulder, the one who takes what he wants. We, Kira and I, want to be happy, and we will. And you will stay here, in this small town, with its own correctness and with nothing." His words were like blows. Every word hit the mark, and at that moment something inside her exploded. Remnants of fear, humiliation, despair were replaced by a clean, unclouded hatred. "You won't get anything," she shouted. This flash the disobedience surprised even her. I'll go to the bank tomorrow morning. We have. Total score. I'll take everything off from there, the last penny. This is our common money that we saved for 15 years. You don't. You will receive them." She threw it in his face as a challenge. This was her last line. Defense, her last hope. Money, which they put aside for old age rainy day. The amount was considerable. This would be enough to start a new life. Vadim looked at her and laughed. It was a sad laugh. It was scary, the mocking laughter of a man who hears a naive, childish threat. He laughed so hard that it was in front of his eyes. Tears came to my eyes. Lena fell silent, confused by his reaction. After he finished laughing, he wiped his eyes and walked over to his worker. Table in the corner of the room, pulled out the drawer, and he took out a folded sheet of paper from there. Papers. He walked up to her and threw the sheet on the bed, directly on the bedspread, which she made in the morning. With them, he said, grinning. Try. She looked at the paper with distrust. There was a bank statement from their common accounts. She took it in her hands. She looked at the numbers, but her brain refused to understand them. List transactions are long enough to cover the entire sheet. Last 6 months, cash withdrawal, cash withdrawal. The amounts were different, but always large. 50,000, 70, 100. Every week, sometimes twice a week. For a week, money disappeared from the account. She reached the last line. Remaining on the score is 0. Round, perfect, ruthless 0. She looked up at Vadim. He stood with his arms crossed over his chest and watched her face with pleasure. He was waiting for this moment. He savored it. You took everything, she whispered. That's it, he confirmed. Down to the last penny. I spent the last tranche last year week. You never checked. Balance. But you trusted me. He's not just was going to steal the money from the sale apartments. He already stole everything else. Everything they built and saved together. He simply erased all 15 years of their lives, cashed out, turned into 0 bank account. Lena stood in the middle of them. Bedroom in the apartment she has. They took it away, with an extract in their hands which informed her that she was completely bankrupt. She wasn't just robbed of her future, she was robbed of it. They stole the past too. She wasn't just standing there on the verge of ruin, she was already on at the very bottom. Vadim grabbed the suitcase. Turning around, he left the bedroom. Lena heard his quick steps in the corridor, the click of the front door lock. Then there was silence. Absolute dead silence, which only happens in an empty house that had just left. She remained standing in the middle. Rooms with this bank statement in hands. The paper was thin, almost weightless, but it pressed on her with all its might. The weight of 15 years of deception. 0. This 0 was not just a number. This was her assessment life, her trust, her love. Everything she considered them to have in common, their future, their property, was simply dust, which he methodically and cold-bloodedly swept out of their lives over the course of 6 months. She slow sank down onto the edge of the bed, their bed, the very one they chose together, furniture store, arguing about rigidity mattress. She ran her hand over the bedspread. Everything in this apartment was chosen, bought, and built by them together, and all this turned out to be a lie, the scenery for it, a long, well-planned scam. She got up and walked around the apartment like a sleepwalker. I looked into the living room. New sofa, curtains that she hemmed herself. Came into the kitchen, the set for which we paid off the loan for 2 years. I touched things and they seemed alien cold. It wasn't hers anymore. House, it was a crime scene. She, the main victim, who I didn't notice anything until the last moment. What to do, where to go. It was in my head ringing emptiness. Call friends? What will she tell them? Hello, my husband. Stole all our money and is running away with my sister, and my mother considers me crazy. They wouldn't believe it. Or, they would believe it, but they would start to regret it. A pity is the last thing she has now. It was necessary. Pity would have finished her off. I kept replaying it in my head over and over again, seeing it mother's. Kira's face, distorted with fake sobs, the mother's face, full of righteous anger directed on her. And Vadim's face, calm, the confident face of the puppeteer who pulls all the strings. They were in cahoots, a strong, close-knit team, and she was one. And here, in this abyss of despair, in another face came into her consciousness, stern, wrinkled, tired with eyes. The face of Michael, the only one a man who didn't try her to deceive, the only one who reached out to her, hammer, and said, "The truth is there." He was her only chance, her only one a man in this collapsed world, to whom she could, oddly enough, trust. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my purse, the car keys, and ran out of the apartment. Without turning off the light, she rushed through the night city. Lanterns, shop windows, headlights of oncoming traffic, cars, everything merged into blurred color stripes. She was driving to the other end city, to the old working-class district, wherein her father-in-law lived in a gray 9-story building. He had it for several years already. Vadim always found excuses not to go to the father. He said that it became heavy, unsociable. Now Lena began. Understand why. The entrance greeted her, the smell of old houses familiar from childhood, a mixture of dust, sauerkraut, and something still undetermined. The elevator was not working. She climbed up on foot to the 7th floor, and each flight was given. She has difficulty. She stood in front of him, a door covered in worn brown leatherette. The heart was pounding. And what if he doesn't accept it? What if he says that these are her problems, their family's problem, and he doesn't want to get involved in this? But another. There was no way out. She knocked quietly, uncertainly. There were sounds behind the door, shuffling steps. The lock clicked. Door. Mikhail opened. He was in the old one in a washed-out robe, with worn-out feet slippers. He looked at her, and in his, there was no surprise in the look, only a heavy, gloomy understanding. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. She came in, into a small, modest hallway. And the apartment smelled of medicine and old books. Everything was extremely simple even. Poor, but very clean. From the wall onto her looked at a black-and-white photograph, young, smiling woman, deceased. Mikhail's wife, Vadim's mother. He took her through to the kitchen. A small kitchenette with a drain oil cloth on the table, an old refrigerator, Saratov, which hummed like a tractor. He silently put the kettle on the stove and took it out 2 cups. Lena sat down on a stool. I didn't know where to start. I took that very bank card out of my purse extract and put it on the table. "He's everything I took it," she said. Her voice broke, and then it broke through. The words poured out her in a continuous stream, getting confused, interrupting each other. She told everything, about dinner, about the mother, about the medallion, about the sobbing. Kira, about how Vadim came in and called her paranoid, about his cold calm at home, about Suitcase, about his mocking laughter when she threatened him with the bank. Mikhail listened silently. He sat opposite, clasping his hands, table with his big working hands. The face was like a mask carved from stone. Not a muscle moved. He is not interrupted, didn't ask questions, didn't gasp and didn't groan. He just listened. And in this there was more sympathy in his silence than in hundreds of comforting words. He was not surprised. That's what was the most scary, and at the same time the most important. As if he knew that everything would be like this. When she finished, exhausted, in the kitchen there was silence, broken only by the whistle of a boiling kettle. Michael got up, turned off the gas, poured boiling water over cups, put one in front of Lena. "Like father, like son," he said finally, looking somewhere at the wall. His voice was hoarse. "I kept waiting for when the rot will come out, and so I waited." He sat back down. "I've been watching him for a long time, Lena. Since Anna passed away, he changed, became tougher, greedier. The eyes became different, empty. I saw the way he looks at you, not as a wife, as a resource, as a step. But I don't. I thought he would go this far. What will drag your sister into this?" He fell silent, ran his hand over his face. Then his gaze stopped at a photograph of Anna on the wall. He looked at her for a long time, painfully. Why do you think I helped you? Why did you come with this hammer?" he asked, without looking at her. "You think it's out of kindness, spiritual, or because you are like me, daughter? That's all true. But there is another one cause. The main thing is that he looked at it again, a photograph of my wife. 30 years ago, Lena, I was the same as him," he said quietly, and every word was given to him with visible labor. "The same crap. I worked for plant. I felt like I wasn't appreciated that. Life is passing me by. What do I deserve? More." He paused, collecting himself. Thoughts. I had another woman. Well, at the factory, I thought it was love, real. And Anna, she became a habit, a way of life. And I decided to change everything. Decided to run away, start a new life. Lena listened with bated breath. She saw before her not a stern old man, and another person, young, full of the same ambitions, which ruined her own life. "I secretly saved money," continued Michael. "I opened a savings book under a different name, and then I decided to sell the dacha. Ours, the dacha that Anna and I built with our own money with hands. Her parents helped with the land. This was her place of power. I posted an ad in the newspaper, found a buyer. That's all already said and done, agreed. He was going to take the money and leave. Without telling her anything, he bitterly chuckled. But she found out. I don't know how. Maybe I saw a savings book that I hadn't seen well, hid. Maybe she heard the conversation on phone. She didn't make a scandal, no screamed. She just sat down in the evening, opposite me. This is how I'm sitting now, and put that same savings book on the table and looked at me. I will never forget. This look, Lena, never. There is nothing in it. There was no hatred, only disappointment, so deep that I wanted to fall through the ground. He fell silent. The silence in the kitchen was oppressive. She stopped me. The sale fell through. That woman disappeared from my life. We stayed, together for Vadim's sake. We lived for another 20 seconds extra years. But this was no longer life. We became strangers, living in one apartment. The marriage died that evening, and I I lived with this for the rest of my life, shame. He hasn't gone anywhere. He's still here. He pounded his fist against his chest. My son is my punishment. He saw our cold. He grew up in a house where there was no love, only habit and silence. Reproach. I didn't teach him to be a man, to be human, and he became my exact copy. Only worse, he moved on. He doesn't just want to run away. He wants to destroy you, trample you, so that feel like a winner. He finally looked her straight in the eyes. There was an abyss of pain and guilt in his gaze. I'm helping you, Lena, not only from one source sympathy. I'm trying to make up for that, made 30 years ago. I'm trying to stop him. Stop yourself in it. I couldn't save your marriage. But maybe I can space D and you from the consequences of my sin. Mikhail's confession stunned Lena. She sat on an old kitchen stool and looked at this broken man, an aged man, and saw him for the first time not just her husband's father, but a man with his own tragedy. His story, terrible and ugly, paradoxically gave her strength. She was not alone. He, her only one ally, understood the nature of this evil not by hearsay. He himself was once this. Evil. The silence in the kitchen became different, not oppressive, but rather some kind of common, divided, for two. Cups of cold tea stood on the table, like silent witnesses of their night conversation. But what to do now? Voice. Lena was quiet, almost soundless. I have less than 2 days left. He has it on power of attorney in hands. I have nothing in my hands. Only this one, a piece of paper with a 0. She nodded towards bank statement. Mikhail was silent for a long time, looking at the faded oilcloth on the table. He seemed to be tense about something, recalled. His eyebrows came together, bridge of the nose. Deep wrinkles became even more deeper. Wait, he said suddenly. Wait, apartment? How do you like her? Did you issue it? Lena didn't understand the question. How usually? A sales contract for both of us in equal shares? No, I don't. About this. Who was the first owner? This, after all, you weren't the one who bought it from scratch. It was. A wedding gift from my parents. They bought it for me even before I met Vadim. And then when we got married and transferred the property to our name, too. Then my mother insisted and said, the family must share everything equally. Michael suddenly raised his head sharply. A sparkle flashed in his faded eyes. Present? Right, I remembered. We were then at the notary office. Everything is together. Yours parents, you, Vadim. I am a sled dog and a lawyer, your parents, so gray-haired, with glasses. He then said something about special conditions, that since it's an apartment was originally a gift to you, then the contract must include a special clause paragraph. Something about when selling personal consent of both is required. Exactly. Personal. Lena tried to remember. 15 years back. Wedding, bustle, euphoria. She vaguely remembered that lawyer, her friend, father. He really took a long time, explained. They signed a bunch of papers. She didn't get into it then. She trusted parents, trusted Vadim. Do you think the power of attorney may not work? With? She asked with bated breath. I know I'm not a lawyer, but I remember exactly that he emphasized this. He spoke. To your father, it will be safer this way. No one could make a decision for another. Where are your original documents? Apartment. At home. In my personal safe. Vadim doesn't know the code. Hope. Then a timid ray of hope broke through the darkness of despair. That was something. Chance. A ghostly chance, but still a chance. Let's go, he said. Mikhail, resolutely rising from behind table. There is not a minute to lose. We were driving through the night city again. But now it was not a pointless race to despair, but a trip with a specific purpose. Lena drove the car, clutching tightly to steering wheel. Mikhail sat nearby, silent and concentrated. They entered her apartment, which has now seemed like hostile territory. Lena quickly walked into the office that served her in the work area. Built into the wall, a small safe was hidden behind a painting. She quickly dialed the combination, the date, the birth of his grandmother. Door opened. Inside there was a folder with documents, marriage certificate, her diploma, and most importantly, thick-stitched contract of sale of the apartment. She pulled it out. My hands were shaking a little. Where are we going with this? She asked. Notaries do not work at night. I have one person, said Mikhail. Not really notary, private lawyer, old smart guy. A man who lives alone and works from home, Sometimes helps my friends pensioners with papers. He is in the laws. He understands things better than many companies. If there is something in this agreement, he will find it. After 20 minutes, they were already standing at the door, an ordinary Khrushchev-era building. A short man opened the door for them, a plump man of about 60, wearing glasses with thick lenses and in a stretched sweater. His name was Anatoly Semenovich. He clearly wasn't expecting guests at such a time, but seeing Mikhail, he silently let them in an apartment filled with books, shelving. Lena, worried, stretched out him a contract. "Anatoly Semenovich, please look. It's very urgent. A matter of life and death." The lawyer put on his glasses, sat down under the dim tarcher and began to read. He read slowly, carefully, moving his finger along the lines. Lena and Mikhail stood over him, afraid to breathe. It's past 10 minutes, which seemed like an eternity. Finally, Anatoly Semenovich raised head. "Yes, Mikhail, your memory does not have failed," he said, taking off his glasses. Paragraph 7.3. Sale, donation, or other alienation, the specified real estate object is carried out exclusively in the presence of personal written consent of both owners, certified by signature on final purchase and sale agreement. Lena exhaled. She almost sat on the floor from relief. Tears gushed from my eyes, the first tears of this terrible day, tears of relief. "So that means his power of attorney is nothing, it's not worth it?" she asked, brushing them away by hand. "Not quite like that," he said cautiously, said the lawyer. "The power of attorney gives him the right to collect documents, conduct negotiations, even getting money for you, as it is indicated there. But here is the final one, the document, the contract itself, which will be signed at the notary's office on the day of the transaction. It should have your personal signature. Without her, the deal will be invalid. Victory. It was a victory. Vadim won't be able to sell the apartment without her. His plan collapsed." "Thank God," Lena whispered. "Thank God, but there is one thing." Anatoly Semenovich frowned. To be sure, I need to see it myself." Power of attorney. What exact wording did they use? "You can do it, show?" Lena looked at Mikhail. He nodded. "I have a copy. I came into Ryalter this afternoon under the pretext I want to clarify the details for my son. I took a picture with my phone while he was turned away for coffee. Mikhail took out an old push-button telephone. For a long time, I fiddled with it and finally opened it photograph. He handed it to the lawyer. Anatoly Semenovich put his glasses on again and brought the phone close to his eyes, enlarging the image. He peered into blurry text for several minutes. His face became more and more serious. So, Notary Yudin Pavel Viktorovich," he muttered under his breath. "All standard, I trust. Sell, receive funds." He fell silent by enlarging the bottom of the document where there were signatures and a seal. He took a long time. I looked at this place, then slowly lowered the phone. He looked at Lena. His gaze was heavy. That ray of light hope that had just lit up in her soul began to fade under this gaze. "What's there?" she asked anxiously. "My girl," the lawyer said quietly and sympathetically. "I'm afraid I have some very bad news for you." "News?" He again took the contract for apartment and opened the last page, where her signature stood at 15 years old. Statute of limitations. Then he looked at it again, a photo of the power of attorney in your phone. "This is very good work," he said, shaking his head. "Very, almost perfect. But this is not your signature, right?" Lena got cold. "No, I didn't sign anything. That's the problem. This is not general power of attorney issued with your verbal consent. This is a document on which your signature is, or rather, it's skillful forgery. This one is fake. The signature is certified by a seal and signature of valid public notary." He turned the phone towards her. "Take a look. With legal point of view for everyone parties to the transaction, for the realtor, for buyer, for the registration chamber. It looks like you personally came to the notary, showed their passport, and signed in his presence. This is not just a power of attorney. This is a full-fledged legal document confirming your will." Lena was watching on the phone screen, on this neat one. Exact, someone else's signature, and on the blue one, a round seal next to it. Her husband is not. He just walked around her. He committed a criminal offense. Crime. He forged her signature. I found a notary who went to official crime and assured this fake. Betrayal has reached a new level. It became legal binding, sealed by the state seal. Blueprint on phone screen blurred before Lena's eyes. Yudin, Pavel Viktorovich, notary. This name and this seal crossed out everything. Her the last hope, that same .703 in. Agreement crumbled to dust, which it doesn't matter what is written there, if there is one. Another document with her fake signature and state seal, which cancels all previous conditions. But this is a fake. Lena's voice trembled. This is a crime. You can go to the police and report it. Anatoly Semenovich shook his head with sympathy. It is possible and even necessary. But understand, girl, mine, it's not a quick process. You will write statement. They will assign a handwriting examination. It's a week, if not months. When is your deal? Tomorrow is silent, answered Mikhail. The deal is tomorrow at lunchtime. Here, the lawyer said, throwing up his hands. Tomorrow at your husband and the buyer will sign for lunch. Final agreement. Realtor and the notary who will conduct the deal. They will see this power of attorney. They have. There will be no reason to doubt her legality. Everything will be clean for them. The money will be transferred to your husband's account, and you can then sue for years, proving that your signature was forged. Maybe you will win the case in a year or two, but the apartment was already by that time will be sold, possibly resold again. Once, the money will disappear. You will be left with nothing. How? The lawyer's words were merciless, but honest. He didn't give false hope. He had just outlined the reality, and the reality was that Lena found herself in a legal trap, from which there was no quick way out. Vadim and the one who helped him thought everything through little things. And the notary? Asked Mikhail. His voice was tense. Yudin, he risks everything. License, freedom. Why does he need this? Money, Mikhail, money. Anatoly Semenovich sighed. In the world you can force a person to do something for money. Risk anything. Either he had other reasons. Maybe he was forced to? Blackmail, threats. We don't know that, but the fact remains a fact. This Yudin is yours, the weakest and at the same time the most. Strong link. If he admitted that certified a forged document, the deal would fall apart immediately. But he doesn't admit it. For him, this is equivalent to turning up with guilty. They left the lawyer already under morning. The sky in the east began to brighten. The city was waking up. People were rushing to work to kindergartens, lived their normal life. And for Lena, this life is over. She felt like a ghost in a strange place. World. Mikhail took her home. I want to sleep for at least a couple of hours, he said, when they were standing at the entrance. Head should be clear. I won't be able to sleep, Lena answered. She looked at the windows of your apartment. Now it wasn't. Just a crime scene and a cage from which she is about to be thrown out. Then just lie down. I'll think about what can be done. There must be some way out. Michael left. Alina rose into the empty apartment. She did not go to bed. She walked from room to room, as in I'm delirious. I took their wedding one from the shelf album, opened. Here they are, happy ones, young. Here is her mother crying with joy. Here is Kira, the bridesmaid, with a bouquet. Flowers smiles at her. Lena looked at. I felt this smile down my back at chill runs. Was it a smile sincere or already then, 15 years ago? Was there black envy hidden behind it? She slammed the album shut. It was all a lie. The whole next day, Thursday, passed in fog. It was the last day before the end. Lena didn't eat, didn't drink, only I was sitting on the sofa and looking at the wall. The phone was silent. Vadim didn't call. He was confident of his victory. Mom doesn't either called, probably still comforting the injured Kira. In the evening at the door they called. It was Mikhail. He looked tired, exhausted. I went into the kitchen, sank heavily into a chair. I'm on all day. I was sitting on the phone, he said, wiping away sweat. Dog. I called my old friends from the factory government committee. I have a lot of friends there. Was. Our town is small, everyone is friendly. A friend is known through 2 handshakes. I decided to make inquiries about this. Notary about Yudin. Lena froze, waiting. At first nothing worked. A regular notary, with his own office in the center. It's been working for about 10 years. Nothing special. There didn't seem to be any complaints. But then I called to an old friend, Kolka. He works in the administration department. Frames. He has access to all kinds of databases. I asked him to take a closer look. He said it was necessary for the job. Michael did it, paused, looked at Lena. Pavel Yudin Viktorovich, he said slowly, clearly. Married. Yudin's wife, in maiden name Stepanova Antonina Igorevna. Works as a senior administrator in dental clinic Zemchug. At Lena's nothing clicked. Pearl, she heard, this name is a common private dentistry. And what? She didn't understand. Then, Mikhail continued, and his voice became tough, that the director of this clinic, her the boss, is a certain Veronica Sergeyevna Markova, how much I punched through about her, and about her own sister. He fell silent, giving Lion herself put two and two together. But she still didn't understand. Markova, what does this woman have to do with her? I don't understand, Lena whispered. Kira, said Michael, your sister, where is she? Works. And then Lena's world collapsed for the third time once in the last 2 days. In pearls, she exhaled. She works in dentistry, Pearl registrar. Yes, Mikhail nodded. She works registrar, and her boss, Veronica Markova, the notary's wife's sister, Udina. That is, simply put, a notary who certified the forged power of attorney. This is brother-in-law, sister's husband, your boss, sister's connection. Here she is, the ugly one, sticky web of connections. It wasn't a random notary bought for money. This was not blackmail from the outside. It was their own internal family agreement. Vadim wouldn't look for someone's side, take risks. He took advantage ready-made network, the network that he, provided by Kira. It wasn't easy betrayal. It was a carefully planned conspiracy. Kira was not just a lover who decided to run away with someone else's husband. She was an active accomplice. She found a way to contact the right person. Through his job, through his boss, she was the brains of this part of the operation. She used my professional connections to help destroy own sister. The realization of this was the most terrible thing. What happened? Yes, this turned the family drama into a cold, a calculated criminal conspiracy where everyone played their role. And as a conductor, now Lena understood that she was not only Vadim's greed, but also quiet, poisonous, the hatred of her own sister. Words Michaela sat down on the kitchen table as shroud. My brother-in-law is my sister's boss. Web, woven so closely, so brazenly. Lena sat looking at her hands lying on table. They did not tremble. Everything is inside, burned to the ground. Only the cold one remained ash. The rage is gone, the panic is gone. Only the strange, detached remained the curiosity of a surgeon studying fatal disease. She knew no enemy. It wasn't just a greedy husband, there was a tandem. Vadim, brute force, pressure, greed. Kira, quiet poison, calculating malice, behind-the-scenes intrigues. And this tandem was much scarier. We don't have any time, she said, and her own voice seemed alien to her, hard as steel. Everything will be ready tomorrow at lunchtime. It will be over. File a lawsuit against Notary to prove his connection with Kira. These are months. I don't have months, there are 15 hours. Mikhail looked at her with anxiety. What are you going to do? Lena looked up at him. There were no tears in them, only icy determination. I can't attack them in the past. They are too well protected. Their truth stronger than mine. So I have to force them to attack themselves. I have to make them talk. They won't? I don't want to talk to you, Mikhail objected. After yesterday, they will stay away, keep you away. They won't talk to strong Lena, she replied. They don't. They will speak with Lena as the accuser, but maybe they will talk to the broken one, crushed, defeated Lena. Stop. What do they want to see me as? There was a plan crazy. He was born from her ashes, despair as the only possible option, risky, dangerous, built on pure psychology. But she knew my sister. She knew her weakness place, her vanity, her need to feel smarter, more cunning, stronger. I need to see Kira. One, Lena said, and I need to make it look like a cry for help. She knew where to look for her sister. After, Kira's work often went into a small cafe near my dentistry. I drank coffee, scrolled through social networks, waited until the traffic jams will go away. Lena went there. She's not, she called without warning. Surprise was part of her plan. She was sitting in a car on the other side of the street and waited. Half an hour later, she saw how Kira left the clinic, in a new coat with fashionable handbag. She looked pleased. Life winner. Kira went into the cafe, sat by the window and ordered cappuccino and cake. Lena looked at, she studied it for a few minutes and remembered it. This self-confident pose, this relaxed smile. Then she came out cars. Before entering, she looked at her reflection in the dark glass of the display case. She forced herself slouch, relaxed facial muscles, allowing the despair that she had for so long, held back, to come out. She ran her hand through her hair to smooth it out, looked disheveled. She transformed. Myself into that very paranoid woman who called her Vadim yesterday. She pushed the door of the cafe and it rang. Bell. Kira raised her head from phone and saw her. A smile on her face disappeared immediately. She tensed, ready. To defense. Lena slowly approached her table. She didn't sit down, she just stood looking down at her sister. "What do you need?" Kira asked coldly, looking around. Lena was silent a second, allowing the tension to build. After she spoke, the voice was quiet, cracked, full of hopelessness. "All it's over, Kira." She said these words, so that there was not a drop in them accusations, just a statement of fact. Kira looked at her warily. She didn't understand what he was getting at. I was at the lawyer's," Lena continued in the same manner, in an empty voice. "He looked at everything documents. Dover, 2, power of attorney." She stumbled on the last word, as if it was painful for her to pronounce it. "He said that I can't do anything, nothing. The signature is certified by a notary. The deal is legal. Tomorrow I will stay at street without a penny of money." She looked at sister, and there was a pleading look in her eyes.